Almost forgot to start recording. I haven't done that in a while. Okay, do not launch in VR mode. I don't have VR. Oh, look, it's spooky. It's a spooky game. You can already hear the spooky ambient sounds, which are really loud. Hold on. Game capture. Oh, okay, this is... I'm scared. Oh, it crashed. I just alt-tabbed back in and it crashed. That's a good sign. You remember? Oh, have you played this one? Okay, let's let's try this again. Where's my audio? You're gonna have to let me know about the sounds. Turn this back up where it was. Voiceovers, we'll go to 70. We'll go 65. Yep, that's good, that's good. Motion blur, that's not good. You know what? I'm gonna unplug my controller. Just in case it starts vibrating. I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain since oh, this is a... I see. Okay. Oh, you talked about it. Oh. I don't know what these are. Let's start. Let me know how the sound is. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You'll not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management. Movement is limited. Yeah, I don't know how much...
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain.
How much a game there is.
Tonight I shall be no more.
That was really loud for me. I don't know about you. The guy's voice was very loud. Oh, there we go. I had to continue. During the game, you'll encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story. Its historical background and the author. Oh. Okay. Some of the trivia is hidden. Find these secrets. Focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. Okay. Right click. You can also access all the found facts later. Hold on, my camera sensitivity. Usually I have to turn it down in games. I need to turn it up. Well, right there. Oh no, there's gonna be a lot of reading, isn't there? Now there's no voice at all. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Is this like... Okay, this is just H.P. Lovecraft lore. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me, largely replacing conversation as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. Well, that's cute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and I'm becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. Okay, that's a letter. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day, but his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Okay. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence has been published. Cool. His most important legacy.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
So this follows like the short story called Dagon. And I guess also gives us Lovecraft lore. I have to remember to
Do not
click.
think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Keep an eye out for elder signs. Morphine. Morphine entered... We're getting so much, like, getting a history lesson. Morphine entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War and World War I. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Frederick? I don't know how to say that name. Who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium. After Morpheus... Oh, sorry. I was thinking Morbius. Let's just say he named it after Morbius, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. It's not Morbius.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
I can't walk. I can just look.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Elder sign? Something up there.
So
Morbentine
liberal,
Bench.
indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Good for you.
When I finally found myself
I should be
adrift and
focusing
free, I had
after
little
he
idea
talks.
of my surroundings.
Because I don't know if the focus objects even show up unless, like, when he's talking.
Never a
I don't think they
competent
show up.
navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Okay. Secrets. I can look into the sun. I suppose that's it.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the
This reminds me of
scorching
that
sun,
part in Midnight
waiting either
Madness.
for some passing
Or
ship
what?
or to be
Midnight
cast on
Mass.
the shores of some habitable land.
Not Midnight Madness. That's... I don't even know what that is. Why does this guy leave? Sounds like being a prisoner wasn't bad. Yeah, this is like that part of Midnight Mass. It is a great show. Okay, hold on. Oh, I saw it. Okay, they can be pretty hidden. I probably missed like 10 already. Dagon was written in July 1917 and first published in 1919 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduced an element from the Cthulhu mythos, Dagon itself. A pagan cult worshipping Dagon later appears in the shadows over Innsmouth. We're familiar with that. 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jervis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. Pretty sure I read that. That name sounds familiar. These two works marked Lovecraft's return to short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend, William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
I've actually heard a lot of this lore, because the Lovecraft book that I own, it's just like a collection of like everything he's done. And before every story, there's like a page of lore about it. It's pretty cool.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Oh god. You're fine, you're fine. It's just a squid. It's totally normal. I don't see any elder signs.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
I want to be famous.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Okay, look, there's gotta be an elder sign. There's continue. Oh. It was just an icon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Irvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake supernatural horror in literature. H.P. Lovecraft. Wait, is that? It's a long name. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. Hello, Bun. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl and yet can feel the ooze sucking me down in defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old. But I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. Okay. He's got thalassophobia. So naturally, you just, you write about it all the time.
I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might, nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
I mean, you can eat them. Nothing's stopping you. Oh wait, is that what we're gonna do?
For several
Eat it.
hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Yep, the sun is moving.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Hold on. There was an elder sign in the boat before.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
I mean, I think your goal is just to, like, get the heck out of here. I'd say that's pretty known.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
There's a hammock up there? Okay, I don't see any secrets. That's a whale.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer
The
than
hummock,
I had
sorry.
first espied it.
It's not a hammock, it's a hummock. I thought he said hammock. In the sky? No.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
I think I know why. Have you seen where you are?
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Yeah, let's continue. Oh, there we go. It was right in front of me. The loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive, his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias, and restored to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe, with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of paper scattered across the floor. That's one way to do it.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plane was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon.
Is it Dagon?
Whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost.
Dude, maybe the air-filled tunnels are down there.
And of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Okay, we're going down.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me, an object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Okay.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
Is this the thing from 2001: A Space Odyssey?
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Elder sign?
For despite its enormous magnitude,
Elder
and
ring?
its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith.
It is it actually the thing from 2001? That was called the monolith, right?
Whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a
Or I guess the
thrill
thing
of
from
the
2001 would be
scientist's
from
or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Okay, I'm examining. I see nothing.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Okay, continue.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen.
I see Cthulhu.
consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Oh. Storytelling methods. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as... Hope you guys are taking notes. Telling the story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness, the Nameless City, journals and character notes, the Shadow Out of Time, the Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, the Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Migo and the Whisper in Darkness. It also, I'm pretty sure Migos are those things like in the end cutscene of Dark Corners of the Earth, right? Those weird crab things. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. Thank you. Thank you, game.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
That's normal.
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that
as
they
big
were
as
merely
whales?
the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Or are the whales just small?
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Oh, there was an elder sign there.
Struck at this unexpected glimpse into
I saw it
a
after I
past beyond
clicked.
the conception of the most daring anthropologist.
I don't think I can go back.
I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
Monka?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Hello, sir.
I think I went mad then.
That's fair.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Hold on. I know I'm like running away from a dude, but let me just look for secrets.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, peals of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
Oh no. I assume there was no secrets.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
Nice.
Brought
got
thither
out.
by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
The journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again, for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. Yeah, just some, political and social commentary. In his excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. ... Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their moral, altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. ... No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animals shall have miraculously changed. Oh, I'm just gonna use my my powers to open that door from my bed.
A celebrated ethnologist, and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
We'll catch. Oh, Dagon. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name. As in Hebrew, the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. We're familiar with deep ones. Oh, there it is.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
What, Bun? What the heck are you talking about? Oh. The Marketer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine. I see another question mark there. Where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. The Shape of Water. I have not seen it. I don't know if I want to. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural structural units, and the cleverest contrivances for built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Misread that as track. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship, which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. ... Okay. I didn't know about this. I got an achievement. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works throughout his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization, that's what the word is. For some reason, I could not figure out what that word was for a second. Of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic. To the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Peepo G. Mortal plane. You know, you could just, like, say he died. I hear a click. I don't see an elder sign there, but I guess there was one. Scientist. These days, the word scientist... this room is just full of lore. The word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted, in defense of Dagon, that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Hey, Rinnan. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet in the 19th and early... It's weird, I feel like the term scientist and artist are, like, literally antonyms. Is it just me? The 19th and early 20th century scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender-specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. You're free from Elden Ring spoilers. Dude, I need to get water. So much reading and talking.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
The thing.
I tried morphine.
He tried morbing.
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
I thought for a second he said transient sussies. And then I read the subtitle.
So now, I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Don't do that. Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. What? Okay. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown, 13th of February, 1928. Yeah, long pants equals adult. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to. Having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. It's quite the sentence. Drinking excited my personal repugnance. Hence, I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. All right, time to morb up.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
It's New York. A bunch of deep ones, I guess.
The end is near.
I can only skip or continue when it's not thumping.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Maybe now we should jump out the window. Now's probably a good time. Or we can, like, go towards the door. That works.
It shall not find me.
I think it found you.
God, that hand! The window! The window!
Yeah, jump out the window. Hold on, let me find secrets first. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're gonna, like, fall to our death. Yeah. We win! Check out our other games and DLCs. Oh. I'm pretty sure I did check these DLCs. It was just, like, art book and stuff. That was cool. We learned so much. Yeah, this is a free game that is intentionally short. However, I have another game lined up